I never expected a single voicemail to unravel my entire world. My father's message sat there for 3 hours before I finally noticed it, buried under meeting notifications and client calls. His voice trembled in a way I'd never heard before. "Lila, honey, I need to talk to you. It's about your sister. Things aren't. Just call me back when you can. Please." My name is Lila, and until that message, I thought I'd made peace with being the responsible daughter. The boring one. The one who didn't need constant bailouts or midnight rescue missions. But something in Dad's voice sent ice through my veins. I was halfway through another mindless quarterly report when the message played. My office suddenly felt too small, the Manhattan skyline outside my window a mere backdrop to the storm brewing in my head. I tried calling him back immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. 3 times. "Everything okay?" Grant poked his head into my office, coffee in hand. My boyfriend of 2 years had an uncanny ability to sense when something was off. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "It's Dad," I said, already packing my laptop. "Something's wrong. He left this weird message about Ivy, and now he's not picking up." Grant's expression shifted. He knew all about my younger sister's drama, the endless string of emergencies that always seemed to end with our parents opening their checkbook. "Want me to drive you out there?" I shook my head. "I need to do this alone. Besides, someone has to explain to Johnson why his financial analyst disappeared in the middle of the day." The drive to my parents' house in Connecticut felt endless. Every scenario played through my mind, each worse than the last. Had Ivy finally crossed a line? Was she in trouble with the wrong people? Or was this just another elaborate scheme to get more money? I pulled into their driveway just as the sun was setting. The house looked the same as always. Pristine colonial, perfect landscaping, my mother's prized roses blooming along the walkway. But something felt off. There was an unfamiliar car parked in the driveway, sleek, expensive, definitely new. Before I could reach the front door, it swung open. There stood Ivy, looking immaculate as always in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Behind her, I caught a glimpse of a man I didn't recognize, lounging on our parents' couch like he owned the place. "Lila." Ivy's surprise seemed genuine, but there was something else in her expression. Fear? Guilt? "What are you doing here?" "Dad called me," I said, watching her face carefully. "Where is he?" "Oh, that." She waved dismissively, but her hand shook slightly. "He's probably in his study. You know how he gets about his little projects." "Mason, honey, could you grab us some wine?" The man from the couch, Mason, apparently sauntered past us toward the kitchen. He gave me a once-over that made my skin crawl. "Who's Mason?" I asked quietly. Ivy's smile brightened, but it didn't reach her eyes. "My new boyfriend. He's been staying here while we figure out our next move. Mom and Dad love him." Something in the way she said it set off alarm bells. I stepped past her into the house, noting the subtle changes. New artwork on the walls. Expensive-looking electronics. Shopping bags from luxury brands scattered near the stairs. "Where's Mom?" I asked, heading toward Dad's study. "Spa weekend with her friends. She'll be devastated she missed you." I reached for the study door, but Ivy grabbed my arm. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into my skin. "Lila, wait," she whispered urgently. "Before you go in there, there's something you should know." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the perfect makeup and confident smile, I saw something I'd never noticed before. Desperation. "What have you done, Ivy?" The study door creaked open behind us before she could answer. Dad stood there, looking 10 years older than when I'd last seen him. His hands clutched a stack of papers that trembled slightly. "Lila," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so glad you're here. We need to talk about the family trust." Dad's study had always been a sanctuary of order and calm. Now, papers littered every surface, and the air felt thick with tension. He gestured for me to sit, but I remained standing, my eyes fixed on the documents in his trembling hands. "The family trust is empty," he said quietly. "Every penny gone." The words hit me like a physical blow. That trust was meant for our futures, for Ella's education. "How?" "Your sister had access," he continued, spreading papers across his desk. "At first, it was small withdrawals. Emergency expenses," she said. "Then larger ones. Investment opportunities. business ventures. I caught glimpses of bank statements, transfer records, all with Ivy's elegant signature. The amounts made my head spin. Where's the money now? Ask your sister's boyfriend. Dad's voice hardened. Mason's been managing their investments. Some cryptocurrency scheme, real estate deals that never materialized. Your mother doesn't know yet. A child's laughter drifted through the window. I moved to look out, spotting Ella playing in the backyard. She was chasing butterflies, her dark curls bouncing in the sunlight. Mason stood nearby, typing furiously on his phone. What about Ella's college fund? I asked, already knowing the answer. Gone too. The door creaked open behind us. Ivy stood there, her perfect composure cracking slightly at the edges. It's not what you think, Lila. Mason has connections. The investments just need time to mature. Stop. My voice came out sharper than intended. Just stop lying. I'm not lying. Ivy's eyes filled with tears. Mason knows what he's doing. Tell them, honey. Mason appeared in the doorway, all smooth confidence and practiced charm. Walter, I understand your concerns, but these kinds of investments take time. We're talking serious returns here. Show me the paperwork, I interrupted. Both Mason and Ivy flinched. The investment contracts, the property deeds, anything. Those documents are confidential. Mason started, but Dad cut him off. Get out of my house. His voice was quiet but firm. Now. Mason's charm vanished instantly. You can't do that. Ivy and I have rights. Rights. I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet room. To what? The money you stole. Lila, please. Ivy grabbed my arm. You don't understand. We had plans. Good plans. If you just listen. The front door slammed, making us all jump. Mom's voice rang through the house. I'm home early. The spa was fully booked. Can you believe it? Ivy's grip on my arm tightened painfully. Please don't tell her. Not yet. Let me fix this. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the designer clothes and perfect makeup, I saw something I'd never noticed before. Fear. Raw, desperate fear. Mom appeared in the doorway, her face brightening at the sight of me. Lila, what a wonderful surprise. Then she noticed the tension in the room, the papers scattered across Dad's desk. Her smile faltered. What's going on? Before anyone could respond, Ella's cry pierced the air. Through the window, I saw her sprawled on the grass, tears streaming down her face. Mason was nowhere in sight. I broke free from Ivy's grip and rushed outside. By the time I reached Ella, she was sitting up, holding her scraped knee. Uncle Mason promised to catch me, she sniffled. But he left. I scooped her up, my niece's small arms wrapping around my neck. Over her shoulder, I watched Mason's expensive car speed down the driveway, taking what was left of our family's savings with it. Back inside, I could hear Mom's voice rising in disbelief, Ivy's sobs, Dad's attempts to calm them both. Ella hiccuped against my shoulder, her tears soaking into my blouse. Is Mommy in trouble? She whispered. I held her tighter, watching the chaos unfold through the window. Mom had collapsed into a chair, her face ashen. Ivy was on her knees beside her, mascara running down her cheeks. Dad stood between them, looking lost. Everything's going to be okay? I lied, knowing things would get much worse before they got better. I promise. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Grant. How bad is it? I didn't respond. How could I explain that this was just the beginning? The next morning, I woke up in my old bedroom to the sound of Mom crying. I'd stayed overnight to help sort through the financial mess, but nothing prepared me for what I found in Dad's office at dawn. Mom sat at his desk, surrounded by even more paperwork than yesterday. Credit card statements, loan documents, second mortgages I never knew existed. Dad stood by the window, looking years older than he had just hours ago. The house, Mom whispered, her voice breaking. She remortgaged the house. I grabbed the nearest document. There was Ivy's flowing signature, right next to Mom's perfect imitation of it. My stomach lurched. She forged your signature? No, Mom's shoulders slumped. I signed. She said it was for Ella's future. A business opportunity that would set them up for life. The magnitude of the deception hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about the trust fund anymore. This was systematic destruction of our family's entire financial foundation. Where is she? I asked. Still sleeping, Dad said quietly. She took some pills last night. Said she couldn't handle the stress. I fought back a bitter laugh. The stress she couldn't handle was of her own making. My phone buzzed, a text from Grant. Found something about Mason. Call me ASAP. Before I could step out to call him, Ivy appeared in the doorway. She looked terrible. Hair tangled, makeup smeared, wearing the same clothes as yesterday. I can't explain, she started, but Mom cut her off. Explain what, Ivy? How you convinced me to risk our home. How you let that man. Mason loves me. Ivy's voice cracked. He wouldn't just leave. Something must have happened. Something did happen, I said, holding up my phone. Grant found his real name. It's not Mason Hale, it's Marcus Henderson. He's done this before. The color drained from Ivy's face. What? 3 other families in the past 2 years. He finds vulnerable women with access to family money, convinces them to invest in his schemes, then disappears. Ivy swayed on her feet. No, that's not. He loves me. He loves Ella. Where is Ella? I suddenly realized I hadn't heard my niece this morning. In her room. Sleeping. Ivy's eyes darted away from mine. Something in her tone sent me running up the stairs. Ella's room was empty. Her favorite stuffed rabbit, the one she never slept without, lay on the perfectly made bed. Ivy. My scream brought everyone running. Where is she? Mason said. He said if anything went wrong, he'd take her somewhere safe. Ivy's words tumbled out between sobs. Just until things calmed down. He left a note. I grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at me. You let him take your daughter? He's her father. Ivy screamed back. He wouldn't hurt her. He's not her father. Dad's quiet voice cut through the chaos. We all turned to stare at him. Ivy, we've never said anything, but we know. Ella was born before you even met Mason. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom sank to the floor, her legs giving out. Ivy stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. My phone buzzed again. Grant had sent an address, a storage facility on the outskirts of town. Mason rented a unit there last week, his message read. Paid cash. I was halfway down the stairs before anyone could react. Call the police, I shouted over my shoulder. Tell them everything. Lila, wait. Ivy ran after me, grabbing my arm. Please, let me come with you. She's my daughter. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the mess and tears, I saw something new. Determination. Maybe even courage. Fine, I said, already heading for my car. But when this is over, we're going to have a very long talk about who Ella's real father is. Ivy flinched but followed me. As we pulled out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of our parents in the doorway. Mom was on the phone, presumably with the police. Dad held her close, his free hand pressed against the door frame of the house we might soon lose. I'm sorry, Ivy whispered beside me. I never meant for any of this to happen. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Save it. Right now, all that matters is finding Ella and making Mason pay for everything he'd done to our family. The storage facility loomed ahead, a maze of identical metal doors under the harsh morning sun. Grant was already there, pacing by his car. One look at his face told me this wasn't going to be good. Unit 247, he said, falling into step beside us. But Lila, there's something else. Mason's real identity? It gets worse. Before he could continue, we heard Ella's voice clear, frightened, coming from somewhere in the maze of storage units. Ivy broke into a run, and I sprinted after her, my heart pounding against my ribs. We found the unit, its door slightly ajar. Inside, Ella sat on a folding chair, clutching her stuffed rabbit. A laptop on a table beside her played a recording of her voice on loop. No, Mason.
No real ella.
Just a trap. Well. Mason's voice came from behind us. The whole rescue party arrived right on schedule. We spun around. He stood blocking the exit, looking nothing like the polished boyfriend who'd charmed our parents. His designer clothes were gone, replaced by practical dark clothing. The charm had vanished too, leaving something cold and calculated in its place. Where is she? Ivy's voice shook. Safe. For now. He pulled out his phone, showing us a live video feed of Ella sleeping in what looked like a motel room. Insurance, you might say. Grant stepped forward, but Mason raised a warning hand. Careful. One call, and my partner moves her somewhere you'll never find. Partner? I caught Grant's eye. This was the something worse he'd try to tell me. You really should have dug deeper into your family history, Lila. Mason's smile turned cruel. Asked your mother about her first marriage. About the money she inherited when her first husband died so tragically. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Mom's occasional mysterious phone calls. Her insistence on handling certain financial matters personally. The way she'd supported Ivy's relationship with Mason despite Dad's concerns. Mom knows you, I said. It wasn't a question. Knew my father, actually. Before she married yours. Mason leaned against the doorframe, casual as if discussing the weather. She's been quite helpful, making sure Ivy trusted me. Keeping Walter in the dark about certain arrangements. Beside me, Ivy made a sound like she'd been struck. Mom. Helped you. Why do you think she signed those papers so easily? Mason laughed. Though I'll admit, she thought this was just about money. She has no idea about Ella. Speaking of which, he held up his phone again. The video feed had changed. Ella was awake now, crying for her mother. Here's the deal. The trust fund money is gone, but we all know there's more. Offshore accounts. Property in the Caymans. Your mother's been quite busy over the years. I don't know anything about. I started, but he cut me off. No, but she does. And now you have motivation to help me get it. Let's call this generational justice. A police siren wailed in the distance. Mason's expression hardened. You have 24 hours. Get your mother to transfer everything to the accounts I'll send you, or Ella disappears permanently. He backed away, then added with a twisted smile, Oh, and Ivy? Maybe ask her about Ella's real father while you're at it. That's quite a story, too. He vanished around the corner. Grant ran after him but returned seconds later, shaking his head. He's gone. Car was waiting. Ivy had collapsed against the storage unit wall, her whole body shaking. Mom knew. All this time she knew. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number with banking details and a photo of Ella, tears streaming down her face as she held today's newspaper. We need to talk to Mom, I said, helping Ivy to her feet. Now. And say what? Ivy laughed bitterly. Hey Mom, remember your first husband's son? The one you've been helping steal from us. Grant touched my arm gently. Lila, there's more you need to know about your mother's first marriage. About how her husband really died. The sirens were getting closer. We had 24 hours to unravel decades of family secrets, face our mother's betrayal, and somehow save Ella. And something told me we'd only scratched the surface of how deep this conspiracy went. Let's go, I said, already moving. It's time to find out exactly who our mother really is. The drive home felt like moving through a nightmare. Every traffic light was a countdown to disaster, every second ticking away against Ella's chances. Mom and Dad were waiting in the living room when we arrived, their faces drawn with worry. The police are looking for Mason. Dad started, but Mom's sharp intake of breath stopped him. She knew. One look at her face and I could see it all, the guilt, the fear, and something else. Calculation. How long have you been planning this? I asked quietly. Mom's composure cracked for just a moment. Planning what? Don't. Ivy's voice was raw. Just don't. Mason told us everything. About your first husband. About helping him get close to us. Dad turned to Mom. Confusion etched across his face. Celeste. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Mom whispered. She reached for her purse, pulled out a sleek tablet. Richard, my first husband. He stole everything from me. When his son contacted me last year, said he could help me get it back. By stealing from your own daughters? My laugh sounded hollow, even to my ears. By putting your granddaughter in danger? Ella. Mom's face went pale. What about Ella? Grant stepped forward, laying printed documents on the coffee table. Mason has her. And he's demanding access to offshore accounts you apparently set up years ago. That's impossible, Mom said, but her hands were shaking. Those accounts were just insurance. No one knows about them except Richard's old partners, Dad finished. We all turned to look at him. I found some old papers last month. That's why I called you, Lila. I was trying to figure out how to tell you that your mother's first husband didn't die in an accident. He disappeared with millions, leaving her to take the fall for his investment fraud. Mom sank into her chair. I spent years rebuilding our reputation, protecting you girls from that scandal. When Mason said he could help me recover what Richard stole. So you helped him target Ivy? I couldn't keep the disgust from my voice. Your own daughter? I didn't know about Ella, Mom repeated desperately. You have to believe me. I thought we could all get justice. My phone buzzed. Another photo of Ella, this time with a clock clearly visible. 20 hours left. Justice. Ivy laughed bitterly. Look what your justice got us, Mom. My daughter is missing, our family's broke, and for what? Revenge against a man who's probably dead. He's not dead. Grant's quiet voice cut through the tension. Richard Hale is very much alive. And according to my sources, he's in town. Mom's tablet slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. On its screen, I caught a glimpse of banking information, accounts holding millions. That's what this is really about, isn't it? I picked up the tablet. Not justice. Not revenge. Mason wants access to these accounts because his father's planning something bigger. We have to call the police, Dad said, reaching for his phone. No. Mom grabbed his arm. If Richard finds out I've talked. There are things you don't know. Things I've done. Another photo came through on my phone. Ella was crying harder now, and a bruise was visible on her arm. I don't care what you've done, I said, my voice steel. But you're going to help us fix this. Now. How? Mom whispered. I looked at the banking information on her tablet, then at Grant. Years of financial analysis had taught me to spot patterns and something about these transactions. We're going to give Mason exactly what he wants, I said slowly. Access to the accounts. But first, we're going to lay a trap. Call Richard. Tell him you're ready to talk. Lila, no, Grant warned. These people are dangerous. So am I. I met Mom's eyes. You wanted justice? Let's get it. But we do this my way. For Ella. Mom nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. For Ella. The clock on my phone showed 19 hours remaining. Time to find out just how far I'd go to save my niece, and whether our family could survive the truth that was about to come out. The cafe was nearly empty when Richard Hale walked in. He looked nothing like Mason, tall, elegant, with silver hair and the kind of confidence that only comes from decades of getting away with everything. Mom's hands shook as she raised her coffee cup. Celeste, he said warmly, sliding into the booth across from us. You look exactly the same. I watched Mom's facade crack slightly. Beside me, Grant tensed, his hand brushing against the recording device hidden under the table. Where's my granddaughter? Richard's smile never wavered. Where's my money? Mom countered. He laughed, the sound sending chills down my spine. Still direct. I always loved that about you. His eyes shifted to me. And this must be Lila. The smart one, according to Mason. Cut the small talk, I said. We know what you want. Do you? He pulled out his phone, showing us a new video of Ella. She was sleeping again, but something wasn't right. Her breathing looked shallow, irregular. What did you do to her? My voice cracked. Nothing permanent. Yet. Richard's expression hardened. The accounts, Celeste. All of them. Not just the ones Mason found. Mom went pale. I don't lie to me. His voice dropped dangerously low. You think I didn't know about Hong Kong? Singapore? You've been moving money for years, building your own little empire. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? My phone buzzed, a text from Ivy. Police found the motel. Empty. Blood on the sheets. The world tilted sideways. I grabbed the table to steady myself, mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. We had a plan. The police were watching. Grant's hand gripped my knee under the table, warning me to stay calm. Time's running out, Richard continued pleasantly. For everyone. Mason tells me Ella's been asking for her mother. Shame if something happened before they could reunite. The transfers are ready, Mom whispered, sliding her tablet across the table. Everything. Just, please. Richard examined the screen, then smiled. Almost everything. He looked directly at me. Except the account in Grand Cayman. The one under Lila's name. The air left my lungs. Mom turned to me, confusion written across her face. What is he talking about? Oh, this is delicious. Richard leaned back, genuinely amused. She doesn't know, does she? Your perfect, responsible daughter has been skimming from the family trust for years, building her own safety net, just like her mother taught her. Grant's hand withdrew from my knee. The betrayal in his eyes cut deeper than any knife. It wasn't like that, I started, but the words felt hollow. How could I explain the years of watching Ivy get everything while I played by the rules? The quiet rage that led me to create that account, feeding it slowly with diverted funds? Tick-tock, Richard sang, standing up. You have 1 hour to transfer everything. And Lila. His smile turned cruel. Mason says to tell you he found your other accounts too. The ones even your mother doesn't know about. He walked out, leaving devastation in his wake. Mom wouldn't look at me. Grant's silence spoke volumes. My phone buzzed again, another text from Ivy, following Mason. Think I know where they're keeping her. Don't tell Mom. Don't, Grant warned, reading over my shoulder. It's probably a trap. I don't have a choice. I stood up, my legs barely supporting me. Mom, transfer everything. Buy us time. Grant. I'm sorry. I'll explain everything later. There won't be a later, he said quietly. Not for us. I walked out of the cafe into the gathering darkness, my carefully constructed world crumbling around me. Everything I'd built, my relationship, my family's trust, my image as the responsible one, was falling apart. But none of that mattered now. Somewhere out there, my niece was dying. My sister was walking into a trap. And I had exactly 57 minutes to decide which secrets I was willing to sacrifice to save them. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number, like mother, like daughter. Come alone or they both die. The abandoned warehouse loomed against the night sky, its broken windows reflecting the city lights like shattered mirrors. Ivy's car sat empty in the parking lot, driver's door still open. My headlights caught something glinting on the pavement. Her phone, screen cracked. I killed the engine and checked my watch. 20 minutes left. The warehouse door creaked open at my touch. Inside, emergency lights cast sickly green shadows across rusted machinery. Footsteps echoed somewhere above. Took you long enough. Mason's voice carried from the metal catwalk overhead. Did you bring it? I held up my laptop. Access to everything. Where are they? Show me first. My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up account details. 6 accounts. Nearly 40 million total. All the passwords and authentication codes ready to transfer. A child's whimper echoed through the space. My head snapped up, catching movement in the shadows above. Interesting, Mason said, stepping into the light. But what about the 7th account? The one you opened the day Ella was born. My blood ran cold. Behind Mason, I could see Ivy now, held firmly by Richard. Ella wasn't with them. Where is she? My voice shook. Safe, Richard called down. For now. Unlike your sister here, who just couldn't stay away. Ivy struggled against his grip. Lila, don't. It's not about the money. They're using us too. Richard's hand clamped over her mouth. That's enough, dear. Mason, show her. Mason tossed something over the railing. It landed at my feet, a familiar leather portfolio. Dad's company letterhead peeked out from inside. Your father's been quite busy, Mason smiled. All those years helping your mother hide her fortune, he picked up some useful skills. Skills that certain organizations would pay handsomely to acquire. The pieces clicked together. You're using our accounts to launder money. Smart girl. Richard released Ivy, shoving her toward the stairs. But not smart enough. Your little secret account? It's been perfect for moving funds internationally. Small amounts, regular intervals, all looking legitimate thanks to your sterling reputation. Ivy stumbled down the metal steps, her face bloody. They killed him, she gasped. Ella's real father. He found out what they were doing and... A gunshot cracked through the air. Ivy screamed, clutching her arm. Blood seeped between her fingers. Last chance, Mason said. The final account. Now. My laptop felt heavy in my hands. Years of resentment, of playing it safe while Ivy took risks, had led to this moment. I'd created that account out of spite, fed it with stolen money out of some twisted sense of justice. Now it might get us all killed. Okay, I said quietly. You win. I set the laptop down, hands raised. Mason descended the stairs, gun trained on me. Behind him, Richard dragged Ivy to her feet. The authentication code, Mason demanded. I smiled. Check your phone. His brow furrowed. A second later, every emergency light in the building flashed red. Sirens wailed in the distance. What did you? The code triggered a failsafe, I said. Every transaction from the past year, every shell company, every hidden transfer, it's all being sent to the FBI right now. Richard's curse echoed through the warehouse. Mason lunged for me, but I was already moving. The gun went off, the shot going wide. Mom's at the motel. I told Ivy as chaos erupted around us. She found Ella. They're safe. Mason recovered, taking aim again. But Ivy was faster. She slammed into him, sending them both crashing into a stack of crates. The gun skittered across the floor. Richard's footsteps pounded overhead, racing for the back exit. Flashlights bounced off the walls as FBI agents swarmed in through every entrance. I grabbed Ivy's good arm, pulling her towards safety. I'm sorry, I whispered. For everything. She squeezed my hand, tears cutting through the blood on her face. Me too. Outside, red and blue lights painted the night. Mom stood by an ambulance, Ella wrapped safely in her arms. Grant was there too, talking to the agents. Our eyes met across the parking lot. He nodded once, and I knew somehow we'd find our way back from this. But first, we had a family to rebuild. 6 months later, I stood in the courthouse parking lot, watching Mason and Richard being led away in handcuffs. The trial had been brutal, forcing every family secret into the harsh light of public scrutiny. But it was finally over. They'll be in prison for a long time, Grant said quietly beside me. We weren't back together. Not really. But we were talking again. Baby steps. Ivy emerged from the courthouse, her arm still in a sling. Ella skipped beside her, clutching her ever-present stuffed rabbit. They looked different now, both of them. Lighter somehow, despite everything they'd lost. Ice cream? Ella asked, tugging at my hand. Some things hadn't changed. Actually, Ivy said, we need to stop by the house first. Dad wants to show us something. The family home had survived, barely. Mom's careful financial planning had protected just enough to keep it, though the interior was mostly empty now. The artwork and luxury items were long gone, sold to pay restitution. Dad waited in his study, surrounded by boxes. Girls, he smiled, looking more like himself than he had in months. Help me with these. Inside each box were photos, documents, letters, pieces of our family history we'd never seen. I've been keeping these, Dad explained, waiting for the right time. He handed Ivy a worn envelope. Inside was a photograph of a young man in a military uniform. Ella's father, Dad said gently. James Mitchell. He worked at my company, discovered the money laundering scheme. He tried to stop it. Ivy's hands trembled as she traced the man's features, so similar to Ella's. Why didn't you tell me? He asked me not to. He was gathering evidence, trying to protect you both. When he disappeared, Dad's voice caught. I should have done more. You did what you could, I said, remembering the careful records Dad had kept. The quiet ways he'd tried to shield us while gathering evidence of his own. Mom appeared in the doorway, hesitating before entering. She looked older now, but somehow more real without the perfect facade she'd maintained for so long. I found this, she said, holding out a small notebook. In Richard's things after the arrest. It was a ledger, filled with dates and numbers. But in the margins were notes, observations about our family, about Ivy and me, stretching back years. Richard had been watching us, planning, long before Mason entered our lives. He was never going to stop, Mom whispered. Using us, hurting us. I thought I was protecting you all, but we all made mistakes, I said, thinking of my own secret account, now seized as evidence. We all thought we were doing the right thing. Ella climbed into my lap, flipping through one of the photo albums. Who's that? She asked, pointing to a picture of 2 little girls, Ivy and me covered in mud, laughing in the backyard. That's your mom and me, I smiled. Before things got complicated. Are they still complicated? Ivy caught my eye across the room. Something passed between us, understanding maybe. Or forgiveness. Getting simpler every day, she answered. Later, as we sorted through the remains of our past, Grant pulled me aside. Your father showed me something else, he said, handing me an envelope. He wanted you to have it when you were ready. Inside was a letter from James Mitchell, dated just days before his disappearance. He'd written about courage, about doing the right thing even when it cost you everything, about protecting those you love by telling them the truth. At the bottom was a postscript: watch over them, all of them. Sometimes the strongest families are built from broken pieces. I looked around the study at Mom and Dad, heads bent together over old photos, at Ivy, teaching Ella to make paper airplanes from blank ledger pages, at Grant, still here despite everything. We were different now. Stronger maybe, or at least more honest about our weaknesses. The money was gone, the secrets exposed, the carefully constructed images shattered. But as Ella's laughter echoed through the empty house, I realized something. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what was missing all along. Ready for that ice cream? I asked. Ella grabbed my hand, then Ivy's, pulling us toward the door, toward whatever came next. Together.
My name is Helen, and I'm a 35-year-old neat freak who loves to be organized. I currently work as an auditor for a well-known company, and my friends frequently make fun of my exacting habits, especially when it comes to preserving receipts and filing taxes on time. But I really do think that these little rituals are what keep my life organized and flexible. I met my husband Scott at a party hosted by Brenda, one of our common friends. I have a clear memory of that evening. When Scott arrived, I was sipping a glass of wine and catching up with some old college friends. He was a little older than I was, but he had a confident gait and a charming smile. He worked for a food sales company as a manager. Putting his arm around me with easy assurance, he said, "Hey, I'm Scott. Would it be okay if I joined you?" With a tight grip on a beer and a pointed look, I answered, "Yes, my name is Helen. It's good to meet you." Our discussion flowed naturally, and soon we were talking about how much we both loved hiking and classic rock. My first interaction with Scott's family occurred when, a few months into our dating relationship, he asked me to a cookout at his sister Margaret's place. It seemed sense that I was anxious, yet Margaret greeted us with warmth as soon as we arrived. On the other hand, her 4 kids were a ball of erratic energy, hurling toys and running all over the place. I greeted everyone with a "nice to meet you all," even though I was uncomfortable with the chaos because the youngsters were getting more and more crazy throughout the evening. With our conversations about the future growing, Scott proposed to me on a beautiful trek with the valley stretching out below us. It was a straightforward but sincere suggestion, just the way I liked it. Margaret's kids again caused a little disruption to our lovely wedding, but they appeared to enjoy a good mess. While Scott shrugged it off, enjoying their happiness, I found it difficult to contain my annoyance and decided not to quarrel in order to preserve the good mood of our day. Scott and I chose to move from renting an apartment to buying our own house after getting married. One evening, during a conversation about contributions to the household and money, Scott shocked me by offering to buy me a new automobile to replace my old one. I was surprised and delighted by the thought, excited about the new beginnings in life that Scott and I would share. "Yeah, it's about time you had something dependable," Scott remarked, grinning broadly and obviously eager to get started. Our search for a home began right away, and a few weeks later, we came across an incredible home. We both felt that, despite its high cost, it was the ideal choice for us. Even though moving in was crazy, I was excited to start decorating our new home. I spent several hours selecting elegant, high-quality equipment and furniture. Scott surprised me with a brand-new, shining automobile on Saturday. I hugged him firmly, overjoyed. "This is amazing, Scott." "Many thanks for it." I let out a cry. With a simple smile, he said, "Helen, you're welcome." You are deserving of it. At the beginning, everything seemed ideal as we got situated into our new house. We both loved our careers and looked forward to coming home to our comfortable, well-decorated home. However, as time went on, minor things began to irk me. I used to find Scott's laid-back style charming, but these days I found it annoying, especially when it came to housework. "Scott, can you help with the dishes tonight?" One evening after supper, I inquired. "I had a long day," he replied, casting a weary gaze on me. "Could we not complete them tomorrow?" My irritation was evident. "Scott, we must not continue to put things off. We must keep our home tidy, even though I'm exhausted too," I urged. He nodded reluctantly and rose from the couch. A few months into our marriage, I grew anxious because I was having trouble getting pregnant. It stressed me out significantly. My doctor advised patience, assuring me it would happen when the time was right, but it was still hard not to worry. Meanwhile, Scott's sister Margaret, who lived in the neighboring state, seemed to be visiting us endlessly. It felt as though she lived right next door. On each visit, she would unload all her marital troubles on me. "Helen, you won't believe what Kevin did this time," she would begin, rolling her eyes dramatically. One evening, I tried to change the subject. "Margaret, can we talk about something else for a change?" But she brushed off my hint. "Oh, come on, Helen. I need to vent." "You're the only one who gets it," she would say, oblivious to my discomfort. Her kids were just as exhausting. They turned our home into a circus the minute they walked in, running around, fighting, throwing food, and being incredibly loud. After a long week, all I wanted was some peace, but that seemed impossible. "Guys, can you please calm down?" I would ask, struggling to maintain my composure. "Why are you always so uptight, Helen?" Margaret snapped at me when I tried to get her kids to behave. "They're making a mess, Margaret." "I just cleaned up," I would respond, my patience thinning. Then she hit me with a low blow. "Well, maybe if you had your own kids, you'd understand." Her words cut deep, especially knowing my struggles with fertility. It felt like a physical blow, and I couldn't believe Scott didn't stand up for me. "Scott, are you going to let her talk to me like that?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. "Helen, calm down. You're making a big deal out of nothing," he said, taking her side again. A big deal out of nothing. She just insulted me in my own home. I shouted, tears starting to form. I was so frustrated and done with being undermined and unappreciated in my own space. Living with a constant disrespect in my own home, where my husband always sided with his sister, was wearing me down. It became evident that things needed to change, and they needed to change fast. One Saturday, Margaret arrived unannounced with her 4 kids in tow. "Helen, I need a break from parenting. I'm going shopping," she declared, dropping her kids off without waiting for a response. The irony of her using the word parenting made me chuckle. Her visits always turned our home into a zoo. "Fine, Margaret, but make it quick," I said, the stress already building up. "Thanks, Helen, you're a lifesaver," she chirped, grabbing her purse and rushing out the door before I could protest. There I was in the kitchen, trying to cook dinner. Cooking is a meticulous process for me, and I like things to be done perfectly. But with the kids causing chaos, focusing was nearly impossible. They were running around, yelling, and making a mess. "Guys, can you keep it down?" I shouted from the kitchen, hoping for a moment of peace. Of course, they paid no heed. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the house. My heart sank. I dashed into the living room and found my worst fear realized. My grandfather's antique Chinese vase lay shattered on the floor. My chest tightened with anger and frustration. What the hell happened here? I screamed, facing the kids who now stood still, wearing guilty expressions. We were just playing, one mumbled, avoiding my gaze. This vase was priceless. It belonged to my grandfather. Do you understand what you've done? I was livid, shaking with anger. Just then, Scott walked in, his demeanor calm and clueless. "What's going on, Helen?" he asked, noticing the mess. "Your niece and nephews just broke my grandfather's vase. Look at this mess." I pointed to the shattered pieces on the floor. "Calm down, Helen. It's just a vase. We can get it fixed," he said, dismissing my feelings as if it were nothing. "Just a vase. Scott, this isn't about the vase. It's about respect. I'm tired of this. Every time Margaret visits, our house turns into a disaster zone, and you don't seem to care." I shouted, my voice cracking with frustration. Margaret chose that moment to walk in, bags in hand, looking annoyed. "What's all this yelling about? Your kids broke my grandfather's vase, Margaret. Look at this mess." I pointed to the floor, trying to hold back my tears. "Well, maybe you should have kept a better eye on them," she retorted, without a hint of an apology. "Are you kidding me? They're your kids, Margaret. I shouldn't have to watch them," I retorted, my hands trembling with anger. Scott shook his head, looking annoyed. "You're overreacting, Helen. Just drop it." "Overreacting? I've had enough of this. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter in my own home," I screamed, the tears finally spilling over. Scott stood there, silent and cold, while Margaret smirked as if she had won some sort of victory. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out of the room, overwhelmed by a mix of anger, hurt, and betrayal. Margaret's chaotic visits had been a recurring issue for months, but I had no idea what was coming next. One morning, as Scott sat at the kitchen table munching on his toast, he casually dropped a bombshell. "I need to tell you something. Margaret's getting divorced, and she's moving in with us with the kids for a few months," he announced as if discussing the weather. I nearly dropped my coffee. "Are you serious? Our house is already a madhouse. Handling their chaos for a day is one thing, but living with it for months, that's entirely different," I pointed out, feeling overwhelmed by the thought. Scott looked at me earnestly. "She's my sister, Helen. She needs our help. You need to be more understanding." "Understanding, Scott? I've been extremely patient, but this is just too much. Why can't we rent a place for her nearby? I'll even pay for the first month's rent," I suggested, trying to find a middle ground while keeping my composure. "No, she'll be better off here. Plus, you can help with the kids and keep things clean," he responded as if the arrangement couldn't be more obvious. "I'm not a babysitter, Scott. I work full-time too, and I need my downtime when I get home," I retorted, my frustration peaking. "Stop being so selfish, Helen. It's family. They need us," he snapped, his tone growing sharp. "I'm not being selfish. I'm looking for a reasonable compromise. I won't let my life be completely disrupted," I countered, my anger rising. "Well, they're coming tomorrow evening, so you better get used to the idea," Scott said abruptly, standing up and leaving the kitchen. I was stunned. I felt blindsided and betrayed. The next morning, still upset from our argument, I dressed for work and went to grab my car keys, but they were missing. When I called Scott, his tone was too calm. "I took the car. It's mine, remember. I'm giving it to Margaret so she can use it for the kids," he informed me nonchalantly. "You're giving my car to Margaret? Are you serious right now?" I managed to say, shocked. "It's not your car, Helen. I paid for it, and she needs it more than you do," he said matter-of-factly. That was the last straw. "You've taken everything from me, and I'm done," I said, my voice trembling with resolve. "What are you talking about? Don't be dramatic, Helen, he replied, missing the gravity of the situation. I hung up, feeling like I was trapped in a nightmare. How had things deteriorated so badly? I called a moving company immediately. Hi, I need a team to move some furniture and appliances today. It's urgent. The movers arrived a few hours later. I directed them around the house, pointing out what to take: the beds, sofas, chandeliers, and even the faucets in the bathroom. Watching them remove each item, I felt a peculiar sense of relief. Everything goes to my mom's house. Thanks for the quick work, guys, I told them, handing over a tip. With the house now empty, I gathered my essentials and drove to my mom's place. Later that day, my phone buzzed relentlessly with calls from Scott, which I ignored, feeling a mix of anxiety and empowerment. That evening, a loud knock rattled the door. I opened it to find Scott furious. "What the hell, Helen? What did you do?" he shouted as he stormed into the living room. "I took my stuff, Scott. You took the car, so I took what I bought," I replied calmly. "This is insane. You stripped the house bare. Where are Margaret and the kids supposed to sleep?" he yelled, his face flushed with anger. "That's your problem, Scott. You made this mess. Now you deal with it," I said, folding my arms. "You're a thief, Helen. You stole everything," he accused, waving his arms frantically. "I didn't steal anything. Here are the receipts," I responded, pulling out a folder and showing him proof of purchase for all the furniture and appliances. He flipped through the receipts, his anger turning to frustration. "Fine, Helen. If this is how you want to play it, I'll file for divorce," Scott said bitterly. I took a deep breath and handed him a stack of papers. "Already done. Here are the divorce papers, and we're done," I stated, his face turning pale as he stared at the divorce papers. "You're serious about this, aren't you?" "Dead serious, Scott." "I deserve better than this," I replied, a strange sense of calm settling over me. Without another word, he took a pen from his pocket, signed the papers, and handed them back to me. "Fine, Helen. Have it your way." I watched him walk out of my mom's house, the door slamming shut behind him. I stood there for a moment, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. It was over, and deep down, I knew it was the right decision. That night, I sat down with my mom and recounted everything that had happened. She listened, her presence comforting, and when I finished, she nodded in agreement that I had made the right choice. "Helen, you've been through so much. It's time you focused on yourself and your happiness," she said, hugging me. "Thanks, Mom. I just need some time to figure things out," I replied, feeling as though a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. In the days that followed, I began to settle into a new routine. I started organizing my space at my mom's house and thinking about my next steps. It was a fresh start, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it head-on. I had reclaimed my life, and there was no turning back. After the divorce, Scott and I sold our house and split the proceeds. I decided it was time to find a place of my own. While my mom's house was a great temporary sanctuary, I needed my own space. One afternoon, while sitting in the kitchen with my mom, I scrolled through apartment listings on my laptop. "Mom, I think I found a place that looks perfect. It's a small apartment downtown, close to work," I said, showing her the pictures. She leaned over my shoulder and smiled. "That looks nice, Helen. Have you called the realtor yet?" "Not yet, but I'm going to do that right now," I said, a bit excited. I dialed the number and waited for the realtor to pick up. After a few rings, a friendly voice answered. "Hello, this is Raymond. How can I help you?" "Hi, Raymond. My name is Helen. I'm interested in the apartment you have listed downtown. Is it still available? I asked, crossing my fingers. Yes, it's still available. Would you like to schedule a viewing? He replied, sounding hopeful. Absolutely. How about tomorrow afternoon? I suggested, trying to maintain my composure. That works for me. I'll see you at 4:00 p.m., Raymond confirmed before we ended the call. The next day, I met Raymond downtown to view the apartment. He greeted me with a warm smile outside the building. Hi, Helen. Nice to meet you. Let me show you around, he said, shaking my hand. The apartment was small but cozy, just what I needed. It featured a nice kitchen, a spacious living room, and a small balcony with a decent view of the city. This place is perfect, Raymond. I'll take it, I declared, a sense of relief washing over me. After signing the lease agreement and receiving the keys, I started planning my move. I wanted to make this new space truly my own, a fresh start. I spent the next few days packing up at my mom's house and arranged for movers to handle the larger items. On moving day, my mom watched as the movers loaded up the truck. She hugged me tightly, her eyes moist but her smile proud. You're doing the right thing, Helen. I'm proud of you, she said. Thanks, Mom. Here's to new beginnings, I replied, feeling ready to embrace whatever came next with open arms and an open heart. As the last box was hoisted into the moving truck, I felt a swirl of excitement and nerves about stepping into this new chapter of my life. Helen, this is going to be great for you. A fresh start is just what you need, my mom said, wrapping me in a comforting hug. Thanks, Mom. I'm looking forward to it, I replied, smiling broadly. We drove to my new downtown apartment, and with the help of my mom and a couple of close friends, we quickly got everything unloaded and set up. As I surveyed my new surroundings, a sense of accomplishment washed over me. It was the beginning of a new chapter, and I was ready to embrace it. That evening, to celebrate the move, I invited my mom and friends to stay for dinner. We ordered pizza and gathered on the floor amidst boxes, raising our glasses of soda in a makeshift toast. Cheers to Helen and her new place, my friend Brenda exclaimed. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate all your help and support, I said, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. As the night progressed, we shared laughs and stories, and for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely happy and free. Later, as I sat on my balcony overlooking the city lights, I reflected on everything I had been through and how much I had grown. I was proud of myself for taking control of my life and making the necessary changes. From mutual friends, I learned that Scott had used his share of the money to buy a small apartment where he now lived with Margaret and her 4 kids. He was working 3 jobs to manage the bills while Margaret remained unemployed, and they were constantly arguing. Then unexpectedly, Scott called me one day. Seeing his name flash on my phone screen was a surprise, but curiosity got the better of me and I answered. Hello, Scott. What's up? I responded, maintaining a neutral tone. Helen, please, just hear me out, he began, his voice tinged with desperation. I know I messed up. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't realize how hard it was for you with Margaret's kids. I couldn't help but chuckle slightly. Really, Scott? You're realizing this now, after all this time? Yeah, I know it's late, but I'm serious. I've been thinking a lot, and I miss you. I miss us. Can we start over? I'm ready to move into your apartment and make things right, he said, his voice almost pleading. I shook my head in disbelief, a chuckle escaping my lips. Scott, you've got to be kidding me. You think you can just waltz back into my life like nothing happened? Helen, I'm serious. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll even take on more work to make it up to you, he insisted, sounding more desperate. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before responding. Scott, it's too late for that. I've moved on. I'm building a life I love, and there's no room in it for the kind of drama you bring. I wish you the best with your situation, but I'm not interested in going back. Goodbye, Scott. With that, I ended the call, a sense of finality settling in. As I turned back to the city lights, I felt a renewed sense of freedom. I was ready to move forward on my terms, without looking back. I've moved on. I'm happy now, and I'm not looking to go back to that mess, I replied firmly to Scott. Come on, Helen, we can make it work this time. I've changed, he insisted, a mix of desperation and hope in his voice. Feeling a mix of pity and irritation, I responded, Scott, it's over. You need to focus on your own life and your family. I'm not interested in going back to that chaos. Helen, please. I'm begging you, he pleaded, his voice cracking with emotion. Scott, no. I found peace without you, and I'm not giving that up, I said, standing my ground. Take care, Scott. I hope you find your way. I ended the call with a peculiar sense of closure and relief. Scott was obviously having difficulties, but I couldn't allow his issues to drag me back into the predicament I had fought so hard to get out of. I had coffee with Brenda later that day and told her about this strange experience. You won't believe who called me today, I said, amusingly rolling my eyes. Who? Brenda questioned, her eyebrow going up in wonder. Scott. He begged me to let him move into my apartment and take him back, I recalled, shaking my head in shock. With a laugh, Brenda nearly spat out her coffee. Are you serious? How did you say that? Without a doubt, I told him no. With a smile on my face, I answered, I'm not going back to that mess. We left and talked for the remainder of the afternoon, and I realized how far I had come. I had created a tranquil and contented new life for myself. I refused to allow anyone to take that away from me. Later, when I was walking home, I experienced a profound sense of contentment and tranquility. I was finally done with that difficult phase of my life and felt confident and happy enough to move on. I felt more and more confident about the promising future ahead of me with every step, as the city around me appeared to reflect my newly discovered freedom. I'm Polly, a 38-year-old novelist who loves to write mysteries and leads the kind of life that many people only dream of. My books have devoted readers, and writing helps me provide for my family. Stephen, our 9-year-old son, and I have been married to Peter for 10 years. Peter worked when we first got married, but as my career took off, he left his job. He hasn't done anything for the past few years, usually spending his days playing pachinko. I recently learned of something unsettling. Peter has been dishonest, using my credit card to lavishly buy designer goods on someone else. For the sake of our son, I've tolerated his behavior, but I've had enough. It's time for a change. I can no longer wait. This shift was brought about by the most unlikely person, someone I never would have imagined coming to my support, stepping in to assist me. I saw Peter one day dressed absolutely out of character in a suit, which was unusual for him. I asked him about it, curious. He told me he was off to a job interview after initially appearing surprised. It's time I started working again, he replied. I wanted to believe him, that at last he was considering how he could better himself for the future of our family. I wished him well and went back to work, realizing I had a deadline approaching. The hours passed, and Peter didn't come back until 2 in the morning. I realized at that moment that I couldn't let things stay the same because of the late hour and the enigmatic job interview, which left me with more questions than answers. For the sake of my future and that of our son, it was time to face the facts of our circumstances and make some difficult choices. Peter shambled in the door that evening, his breath heavy with perfume and vodka. Tired, or was he simply being irresponsible? He fell back on the living room sofa, his smartphone falling out of his palm but staying unlocked. I couldn't help but give in to my curiosity and suspicions. I grabbed his phone and quickly looked at it. Unquestionable evidence that my husband was having an extramarital affair with my best friend Nancy was what I discovered there, and it shocked me to my core. Only hours before, they'd been at an upscale restaurant with a stunning view of the night sky. It seemed like a bodily blow to be betrayed. How could I be subjected to this abuse by both Nancy and Peter, who were married? I suppressed my tears since I didn't want to wake Peter. I silently copied the damning pictures and texts to my phone. I had to gather myself and carefully consider what to do next. As if nothing had happened, I questioned Peter about his night the next morning. "Peter, let's talk about yesterday. Despite your claim to have had an interview, you arrived home somewhat late. What took place?" His eyes darted away, giving off an uneasy vibe as he searched for an explanation. "I ran into a friend after the interview, and we went out for drinks," he stated. He denied it when I questioned him about the identity of the acquaintance. "Catherine, just some dude. I mean, do I really need to explain everything?" I bit my frustration back and said nothing. His avoidance not only strengthened my resolve to deal with the problem as dignifiedly and strategically as possible, but it also reinforced my worst assumptions. It has been a month since that discovery, and Peter's treachery still carries a heavy burden. Since I know that confronting him could permanently damage our family, I haven't done so yet. If it were just me, I would have already shown him the proof and asked for a divorce. But because of our son and the complicated feelings he brings, I've had to carefully weigh every option, since I know that whatever I choose would have a lifelong impact on our family. The notion of taking my 9-year-old son Stephen away from his father was intolerable, even with all of the agony in my heart. Though he claimed that his frequent outings were to visit friends or decompress, in reality, they served as the ideal pretext for me to obtain proof of Peter's adultery, something I had been growing suspicious of. One day, seizing an opportunity while Peter was out, I rummaged through his belongings and found a stack of receipts for women's designer items, luxuries I certainly hadn't received. None of these high-end goods were in our home, leading me to one painful conclusion. Peter was lavishing these expensive gifts on Nancy, my so-called best friend. But the mystery deepened. How was Peter financing these extravagant purchases? He hadn't worked in years and was living off the modest allowance I gave him from my earnings. Concerned and needing answers, I devised a plan to follow him. I called my brother to watch Stephen, cloaking my real intentions under the guise of a shopping trip. "Hey, sorry to bother you out of the blue, but can you watch Stephen for a bit?" "I want to go shopping alone," I told him. My brother, puzzled because I usually preferred online shopping, raised an eyebrow. "Shopping? You've never been one to shop in person. What's up?" "Normally, yes, but today I need something from a store. Can you watch him for me?" I replied. He agreed, albeit with a reminder not to be gone long as Stephen might get lonely. With my brother's help, I was free to track Peter. I spotted him downtown, arm in arm with Nancy, strolling into a high-end designer store with unsettling familiarity. Watching them together, a mix of hurt and anger surged through me. As they approached the cashier, I saw something that truly shocked me. Peter was paying with a credit card. My heart sank as I realized it was my secondary credit card, the one I usually left in an unattended drawer at home. Peter had taken it without my knowledge. The betrayal was deeper and more complex than I had imagined. Witnessing it firsthand was painful, but armed me with the undeniable proof I needed. Now I had to decide what to do next, knowing that whatever steps I took would impact not just my life, but Stephen's as well. Over the past few months, while I was making significant purchases for my home office, including monitors, keyboards, and new furniture, I hadn't realized that Peter was exploiting this flurry of activity to cover his deceitful expenditures. Both our credit cards were linked to the same bank account, and amidst my hectic schedule, I hadn't scrutinized the statements closely enough. This oversight now haunted me as it became painfully clear. Not only was Peter unfaithful, but he was also misusing my funds to shower gifts on his mistress. Any remaining fondness I felt for my husband evaporated in the wake of this revelation. Although part of me blamed myself for not noticing earlier, I found it impossible to forgive his betrayal. I managed to snap some clear photos of Peter and Nancy together and headed home, my mind boiling with anger. In the following days, my thoughts turned to revenge. I frequently checked Peter's usual computer, knowing he left it unlocked and easily accessible when he wasn't around. Digging into his communications with Nancy, I soon discovered their plans for a romantic getaway to Kagoshima over the upcoming long weekend. A 5-day escape that seemed tailor-made for my plans of retribution. However, I faced a significant dilemma, ensuring my son Stephen remained shielded from the ugly truth about his father's actions. I reached out to my brother again, hoping he could help by looking after Stephen. "Hey bro, sorry to bother you again, but could you watch Stephen for me during the upcoming long weekend?" His response, though supportive, carried a hint of concern. "You mean for all 5 days?" he asked, sounding surprised. Before I could reply, he added firmly, "Catherine, stop trying to handle everything on your own. Peter's cheating on you, isn't he?" I was taken aback by his directness. "How did you know?" I asked, my voice a mixture of shock and curiosity. "I heard it from Stephen," he revealed. Hearing my son's name in this context was a jolt. Despite his young age, Stephen had sensed something was amiss with his father. This complicated things further, as it meant Stephen was more aware of the situation than I had hoped. Now I had to navigate not only my response to Peter's betrayal, but also how to protect my son from the emotional fallout. I hadn't realized how much Peter's actions were affecting Stephen until my brother pointed it out. Despite my efforts to shield him, Stephen had picked up on the tension and pain in our household. As I was grappling with these revelations, Stephen, having overheard our conversation, came into the room. "Mom, it's okay. I'm on your side," he said with a clarity that belied his young age. "Are you sure, Stephen?" I asked, touched by his understanding and support. "I don't want anyone who makes Mom sad." "As long as I have you, I'm okay," he replied confidently. "Thank you, Stephen." "And thank you too, bro," I expressed, feeling a surge of gratitude for their support. Bolstered by the encouragement of my son and brother, I resolved to take decisive action against Peter's betrayal. We began planning our move to a new home to coincide with Peter's planned getaway with his mistress. With my brother's assistance, we discreetly packed our belongings whenever Peter was out. The night before the long weekend, as Peter buzzed with excitement for his upcoming trip, I decided it was time to confront him and perhaps give him one last chance to explain himself. "Peter, what's with the suitcase? Why are you packing?" I inquired as he shuffled things around. "Oh, this? I'm going on a trip with a friend starting tomorrow," he answered nonchalantly. "A trip? Did you mention anything about that?" It seems like a last-minute decision, I probed, hinting at my knowledge of his misuse of the allowance I gave him. My husband's annoyance was palpable as he tried to dismiss my questions. "Don't talk to me about it anymore, Catherine," he snapped. I lowered my voice, pressing him further. "Are you going on this trip with just a friend?" My tone caused him to flinch, his shoulders tensing as he realized the depth of my awareness. His reaction confirmed my suspicions, and I knew what I had to do next for myself and Stephen. Despite his obvious deceit, Peter tried to dismiss my concerns with a lie. "You've been nagging me a lot lately, Catherine," he said, trying to justify his secretive plans as a mere trip with a friend. "Have a good time," I retorted, my voice heavy with sarcasm. "Yeah, I'm excited for our new home," I said as I left the room. Deep down, if Peter had been honest with me, I might have considered resolving our issues more amicably, perhaps negotiating some alimony and child support even despite his infidelity. After all, there was a time when he was my pillar, supporting me when my novel struggled to find readers. I didn't want to hold on to hatred or resentment towards him. However, given the extent of his deception, I couldn't just stand by for the sake of my son and my future. Ending the relationship had become inevitable. There was no merit in preserving ties with someone so repeatedly dishonest. The next morning, by the time I woke up, Peter had already left for his trip. I checked the drawer immediately and, unsurprisingly, found my credit card missing. I promptly called the credit card company, reported the card as lost, and blocked any further transactions. As I was handling these logistics, my son Stephen woke up and greeted me with a bright smile. "Mom, today's the day, right?" he asked eagerly. "Huh?" I was momentarily confused. "We're moving to our new home today, right?" His eyes were alight with excitement. "That's right, Stephen. I've canceled the credit card, and now it's time for us to move on to our new home," I confirmed, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation. "Yeah, I'm excited for our new home," he exclaimed. With my brother's invaluable assistance, our move went smoothly. As we settled into our new environment, the sense of a fresh start was empowering. Stephen's enthusiasm and resilience reminded me that no matter how challenging the circumstances, a new beginning was not just possible, but also filled with potential. As we settled into our new home, I felt a sense of renewal wash over Stephen and me. Meanwhile, my husband's belongings were sent off to a location he had specified, marking a clear division in our lives. That tranquility was briefly interrupted the next day. While we relaxed in our new surroundings with my brother by our side for support, my phone rang. It was Peter. "Hello, Catherine. Is that you? Could you transfer me some money? I spent more than I planned, and now I need some extra cash," he said, clearly unaware that I had frozen the credit card he usually misused. "Didn't you say you were going to stick to your allowance?" I asked, my tone sharp. "Come on, don't say that. I can't enjoy my trip if you do that," he complained. "Aren't you with Nancy?" I retorted, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Peter seemed taken aback. "What are you talking about? Who's Nancy? What's going on with the card?" It's pointless to play dumb. "Your lies aren't working," I snapped, my patience worn thin. "It's clear you've been cheating on me with my best friend Nancy. Did you think you wouldn't get caught? This isn't what it looks like. It's not cheating." He tried to justify himself, his voice desperate. My anger flared, fueled by his feeble attempts to deflect blame. With my brother and son within earshot, I no longer held back my fury. "Stop making excuses. You have a family, yet you chose to have an affair and misuse someone else's credit card. Do you realize how low you've sunk?" "Catherine, let's calm down," Peter attempted to soothe the situation. "Calm down? How can I stay calm when I'm speaking to the person who betrayed his family so thoughtlessly?" My voice rose, an outpouring of emotions I had contained for far too long. The call ended with those unsparing words, leaving a heavy silence in the room. My brother placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, and Stephen looked up at me, his young face a mixture of confusion and concern. This moment, painful as it was, marked the beginning of a new chapter for us, one where we could move forward from the deception and hurt. Overwhelmed with a mixture of disgust and resolve, I made my feelings brutally clear to Peter. Let me make this clear. I have no intention of forgiving you or offering any help. You and the woman you cheated with can go straight to hell. Don't you dare show your face in front of me or Stephen ever again. With those final words, I hung up the phone, abruptly ending the call. Shortly after, Nancy, the woman he cheated with, called me. Her voice was tinged with demand. "Catherine, what are you doing?" she asked sharply. "Nancy, long time no see. How's your trip with your best friend's husband going?" I retorted, my words dripping with sarcasm. "Shut up. Explain yourself," she snapped back. "What are you talking about?" she asked, feigning ignorance. "Don't play dumb. You sent Peter's belongings to my house, didn't you?" During our move, I had strategically shipped all of Peter's belongings to Nancy's house, fully aware that she was the other woman. Since Nancy was married, her husband was bound to be at home when the delivery arrived. I had included a detailed letter explaining the situation, ensuring that her husband would understand the full extent of our spouse's betrayal. As I shouted at Nancy over the phone, barely containing my rage, she blurted out, "Are you serious?" "My husband found out, and he's furious." "Isn't that expected? You're having an affair even though you're married. My supposed best friend did such a disgraceful thing. You're the worst. I'm incredibly disappointed in you," I fired back. "Excuse me?" she responded, taken aback. "I think that's my line. You were the one having an affair with my husband. Do you think I'd forgive you for that? Who showed disrespect first, Nancy? I wasn't serious. It was just a fling. There's no way I'd settle for a jobless loser like him." She tried to minimize her actions. "Whether you were serious or not doesn't matter to me," I replied coldly, cutting through her excuses. The betrayal had severed any ties of friendship we had, leaving only the stark reality of her deception. I informed her bluntly, "I'm divorcing Peter, and your affair is a fact that I won't forgive. I'll be demanding the maximum compensation from both of you, so be prepared." Compensation? I didn't agree to that. Why should I pay compensation? Nancy protested, her voice tinged with panic. "It's only natural. You did something that warrants it," I replied firmly. "But wait, I'm a housewife." "I can't afford to pay compensation," she stammered. "That's for you to figure out. Maybe you can ask your husband for help, though I doubt he'll be inclined to assist you now," I said coldly. "Wait a minute, Catherine, please," she began to plead, but I was done listening. "Goodbye," I said and hung up the phone, then promptly blocked her contact. I moved forward with the divorce proceedings through a lawyer, demanding compensation not just from my ex-husband Peter, but also from Nancy. I sought child support and reimbursement for the funds Peter had frivolously spent on my credit card. Nancy's spouse served her with divorce papers, as she was now facing debt from the compensation payments. Eventually, I've heard, they had to force her to leave their house. She tried to depend on her family, but that didn't work out, so she had to start working nights to make ends meet. Peter's relationship quickly collapsed as a result of his desire to rely on Nancy and his subsequent accusation of being the cause of it. After they split up, he had a protracted unemployed period and had to work many part-time jobs to make ends meet. I am ready to pursue the court order if he ever defaults on the child support or restitution. Stephen and I, meanwhile, are thriving in our new surroundings. He is maturing rapidly, flourishing in a loving household free from the pain of the past. My main goal is to keep giving him a loving environment and protect him from any more emotional upheaval. At the front gate, the hammering and clattering began. My spouse was banging on the door in a fit of rage. "Are you serious? Please let me in now. Would you like this scene to be seen by everyone in the neighborhood?" He was outside my family's house raising a commotion on a cold Christmas Eve. Usually, Christmas brings us together to celebrate. But this year was ruined by something terrible I had found out a few days previously. My spouse's adultery was revealed to me when I happened upon an envelope. I felt helpless and deceived in my roles as a mother and a wife. He pretended to be working late, but in reality, he was barely making enough money to buy our kids presents since he was blowing our savings on his affair. With my family watching, I threw open the door and faced him there because I could take the pain no more. Tension was in the air. Playing the ignorant, he inquired, "What's happening?" Up until that point, life as a typical housewife with my spouse and our 2 children looked simple. Some people may balance their relationships by spending Christmas Day with family and Christmas Eve with a lover, contingent on cultural or personal beliefs. My siblings and I were raised in a home that did not observe traditional holidays. Due to our parents' hectic work schedules, we developed the custom of cooking together, eating cake, and watching special year-end television programs to celebrate Christmas over winter break. Christmas Eve with my spouse and our child used to be a happy occasion as I got older and established my own family. But as the years went by, our relationship's core changed from being romantic to being more family-oriented. Christmas Eve progressively shifted from being about us to being about making sure our kids were happy. We adjusted and decided that the happiness of the children came first. Therefore, I didn't first find it strange when my husband casually suggested that he might be stuck at work overnight on the 28th. It appeared to be yet another turn in our changing holiday customs. Even though I wasn't extremely upset about it, learning of his betrayal made our vacation into a starkly confronting and illuminating experience. My husband's absence from our home on Christmas Eve made me realize how much our relationship had changed. I still had a strong affection for him despite everything that had changed, and I was happy living with him. So I committed myself to making Christmas happy for our children, accepting it as another kind of delight. Is this all the money we have this month for living expenses? Has there been an issue with your paycheck? Trying not to sound too critical, I asked. Expenses always appeared to rise as the year came to a finish. And with Christmas quickly approaching, I was hoping we could make some additional financial room. My spouse had set aside a significantly smaller amount of money than normal for living expenses, which shocked me. I nudged him to see if there was any way I could handle this. I would possess items, I murmured. There are one-time expenditures for the new year, as well as work-related expenses. Do you think I like having to make such drastic cuts? As a housewife, managing our budget with little funds had become a crucial aspect of my job. Visibly stressed, my husband steered clear of the conversation. "You're correct. I apologize. I'll try my hardest, but keep in mind that Christmas is almost here, and the kids are excited about their gifts. For their benefit, let's make this season unforgettable. I do not want us to be unable to pay for their presents." We typically have a rule in our household that says the children have to give us an explanation for their requests. On the other hand, they can request anything for Christmas and their birthdays. I was determined to make sure we had enough money to fulfill their requests because of their intense devotion to Christmas. Let's exercise a little more restraint in our spending, I proposed. What do you want for Christmas, kids? With a groan, my spouse gathered the children. Dad, I want a picture book about railroads and a cartoon DVD set, too. Which do you consider to be superior? The book, without a doubt. You can share it with your friends, and it will assist you in learning to read. Even better, you could read it to your younger pals. You would make a really nice big boy." Our daughter, looking a little disturbed, added, "I really want a new doll set so I can feed it and sleep with it, but my crayons broke recently, and now I can't draw. Crayons would be great, in my opinion." "Carol, you have such artistic talent," I said, attempting to strike a compromise between their desires and our financial limitations. We worked through the difficulties of the season together, and these times reflected the basic yet profound rewards of parenthood. Observing my daughter's sketch, I advised her to ask Santa for some better quality crayons than the ones she was using previously. She was eyeing a new set of dolls, though. "But what about the dolls? Can't you listen to what I want? Santa only visits good children. Naughty kids who are selfish get nothing," I reassured her. "Let's ask for the crayons first." While I tried to balance the children's wishes, my husband nudged them towards more affordable options. Brian's gift can come from a used bookstore, and Carol's gift can be from the store, he suggested quietly, implying that this approach would help us avoid overspending during the festive season. "Do you think spending money is the only solution?" he murmured under his breath, making sure only I could hear, labeling our children's eagerly awaited gifts as mere extra expenses. He subtly steered their young minds to fit his frugal agenda, which started to sow seeds of resentment in me. One evening, as my husband bathed our daughter, she came running with a sparkly envelope she found in his work bag. "Mom, look, could it be from Santa?" Although it was wrong for her to rummage through his things, my curiosity was piqued. I told her, "You shouldn't have taken that without asking. Give it here and I'll put it back." But when I took the envelope, curiosity overcame me, and I peeked inside. It was a reservation for a Christmas dinner for two at a hotel on the 28th, the night he was supposedly working. Questions and doubts flooded my mind. Just then, a notification pinged from my husband's phone. Startled, I glanced over. It was getting a flurry of messages. Normally, I wouldn't pry, but unease compelled me to check. All the messages were from someone named Tiffany, accompanied by heart emojis, and a profile picture of a woman much younger than myself. The pieces began to fall into place, painting a troubling picture. With each passing day, I found myself sneaking glances at his phone, confirming my suspicions. Tiffany was likely his mistress, and he planned to spend Christmas Eve with her, even hinting at a special gift. Driven by a mix of hurt and determination, I hired a private investigator. Catching my overly confident husband in the act seemed the only way to confront this painful reality squarely. The days leading up to Christmas were filled with a mix of dread and resolve as I prepared to face whatever truths the investigation would uncover. When the investigation results arrived, they confirmed my worst fears. Tiffany was an employee at my husband's company, and their affair had started just a month ago. All those late nights he claimed to be working were spent with her. The sudden reduction in our household funds was likely funneling into his affair. Holding the investigator's report, tears of frustration and betrayal spilled over. In just a month, my husband had shifted his priorities so drastically, favoring another woman over his own family. My diligent care for our home, under the belief that he was burdened with work, and our children's quiet longing for time with their father now seemed tragically misplaced. The revelation of his betrayal was too profound to overlook. Initially, I was paralyzed by the shock, but soon determination took hold. I wasn't going to let this go without taking action. Drying my tears, I channeled my energy into planning a decisive response. On the morning of December 28th, I maintained a normal front as I sent my husband off to work. But once he was gone, I took the kids and moved to my parents' house. "It's been so long since we've all been together like this," my mom exclaimed as we arrived. The festive spirit at my parents' home was uplifting. We spent the day decorating a large Christmas tree and enjoying a joyous Christmas party. The next morning, the children were overjoyed by the gifts under the tree: a DVD and a picture book for my son, and a doll and crayons for my daughter, all presented as gifts from Santa and also from their grandparents. As the children played happily with their new toys, the adults watched with content smiles. Then my phone buzzed. Stepping outside to answer, I heard my husband's distressed voice. "Hey, where are you?" "I just got home from work, but my key doesn't fit the lock and the doorbell isn't working." "What's going on?" I could hear him fumbling with the door handle through the phone. "Calm down, you're making a lot of noise." "No one is there because we don't live there anymore. We finished moving out yesterday. You were too busy with work to notice. And by the way, if you keep shaking that door, it might break." "If it breaks, it's not my problem," I replied, a mix of sternness and mockery in my voice. As I watched my daughter's sketch, I encouraged her to ask Santa for some nice crayons, even better than the ones she had before. She was also eyeing the new doll set. "But what about the dolls? Can't you listen to what I want?" She said. "Santa only visits good children. Naughty kids who are selfish get nothing," I reassured her. "Let's ask for the crayons first." While I tried to balance the children's wishes, my husband nudged them towards more affordable options. Brian's gift can come from a used bookstore and Carol's gift can be from the store, he suggested, quietly implying that this approach would help us avoid overspending during the festive season. "Do you think spending money is the only solution?" "How foolish," he murmured under his breath, making sure only I could hear, labeling our children's eagerly awaited gifts as mere extra expenses. He subtly steered their young minds to fit his frugal agenda, which started to sow seeds of resentment in me. One evening, as my husband bathed our daughter, she came running with a sparkly envelope she found in his work bag. "Mom, look. Could it be from Santa?" Although it was wrong for her to rummage through his things, my curiosity was piqued. I told her, "You shouldn't have taken that without asking. Give it here and I'll put it back." But when I took the envelope, curiosity overcame me, and I peeked inside. It was a reservation for a Christmas dinner for two at a hotel on the 28th, the night he was supposedly working. Questions and doubts flooded my mind. Just then, a notification pinged from my husband's phone. Startled, I glanced over. It was getting a flurry of messages. Normally I wouldn't pry, but unease compelled me to check. All the messages were from someone named Tiffany, accompanied by heart emojis and a profile picture of a woman much younger than myself. The pieces began to fall into place, painting a troubling picture. With each passing day, I found myself sneaking glances at his phone, confirming my suspicions. Tiffany was likely his mistress, and he planned to spend Christmas Eve with her, even hinting at a special gift. Driven by a mix of hurt and determination, I hired a private investigator. Catching my overly confident husband in the act seemed the only way to confront this painful reality squarely. The days leading up to Christmas were filled with a mix of dread and resolve as I prepared to face whatever truths the investigation would uncover. When the investigation results arrived, they confirmed my worst fears. Tiffany was an employee at my husband's company, and their affair had started just a month ago. All those late nights he claimed to be working were spent with her. The sudden reduction in our household funds was likely funneling into his affair. Holding the investigator's report, tears of frustration and betrayal spilled over. In just a month, my husband had shifted his priorities so drastically, favoring another woman over his own family. My diligent care for our home, under the belief that he was burdened with work, and our children's quiet longing for time with their father now seemed tragically misplaced. The revelation of his betrayal was too profound to overlook. Initially, I was paralyzed by the shock, but soon determination took hold. I wasn't going to let this go without taking action. Drying my tears, I channeled my energy into planning a decisive response. On the morning of December 28th, I maintained a normal front as I sent my husband off to work. But once he was gone, I took the kids and moved to my parents' house. It's been so long since we've all been together like this, my mom exclaimed as we arrived. The festive spirit at my parents' home was uplifting. We spent the day decorating a large Christmas tree and enjoying a joyous Christmas party. The next morning, the children were overjoyed by the gifts under the tree. A DVD and a picture book for my son, and a doll and crayons for my daughter, all presented as gifts from Santa and also from their grandparents. As the children played happily with their new toys, the adults watched with content smiles. Then my phone buzzed. Stepping outside to answer, I heard my husband's distressed voice. "Hey, where are you?" "I just got home from work, but my key doesn't fit the lock and the doorbell isn't working." "What's going on?" I could hear him fumbling with the door handle through the phone. "Calm down, you're making a lot of noise. No one is there because we don't live there anymore. We finished moving out yesterday. You were too busy with work to notice. And by the way, if you keep shaking that door, it might break." "If it breaks, it's not my problem," I replied, a mix of sternness and mockery in my voice. I followed my parents to the front door, bracing for a confrontation. As my father swung the door open, my husband stood there with a defiant smirk on his face. "Long time no see, Dad," he said with a sly grin. But my father's response was icy. "It's not good to see you. Stop pretending we're friends. You're no longer a son to us, just someone who hurt our family," he interrupted sharply. My mother joined in, her tone harsh and unyielding. "Causing a scene at this hour? Do you even know what time it is? It's incredibly rude. The kids have been asleep for hours. You're not fit to be their father," she declared, staring him down with a stern glare that shocked my husband, accustomed as he was to her usual gentleness. "I won't let my grandchildren witness this anymore. Leave now. You're a nuisance and no longer part of this family," my father-in-law stated calmly, his voice tinged with anger, making it unmistakably clear that it was time for my husband to go. Faced with the united front of my family, my husband's expression darkened as if he might lash out. But before he could respond, my mother-in-law spoke up firmly. "I'm calling the police right now." Seeing her reach for the phone, panic overtook him, and he fled the scene without uttering a single apology, a stark reminder of his true character. At that moment, I didn't shed any more tears. Instead, a profound sense of emptiness enveloped me, leaving me to ponder the purpose of all I had endured. "How about some warm tea, and then you can get some rest?" my mother suggested gently, touching my shoulder with a comforting smile. The warmth and understanding from my family enveloped me as I retreated to my room, grateful for their unwavering support. Meanwhile, my now estranged husband, finding himself without a home, attempted to return to his parents' house, only to discover that they had changed the locks. After hearing my side of the story, they turned him away, unwilling to let a stranger disrupt their peace. Left out in the cold, my husband finally grasped the gravity of his actions and the weight of his parents' words. Now truly understanding the consequences, he expressed sincere regret and agreed to the terms of our divorce without a legal battle. I had a lawyer prepared just in case, but fortunately, the proceedings concluded smoothly. I began anew in my parents' house, a sanctuary for myself and my children. Here, amidst the challenges of balancing work and parenting, every day brims with purpose, supported by the love and help of my parents. Life is bustling but deeply fulfilling. Even though my marriage has ended, and I will not see my ex-husband again, I maintain a strong connection with my former in-laws. They are wonderful grandparents, offering not just love to my children, but also tremendous support to me. Despite the official documents declaring us no longer family, I cherish their presence in our lives and hope they remain a constant, watching the children grow and flourish. Do you both have everything? Let's go, and don't forget to say goodbye to Grandma and Grandpa. I remind my kids as we get ready to leave their house. Bye, we call out, and I send a silent prayer for these peaceful, ordinary days to continue indefinitely. I look forward to celebrating next Christmas together, imagining the bright smiles on my children's faces as we gather around, a testament to our resilience and the new bonds we forged. This thought alone adds a lightness to my step, fueling my hope for many joy-filled years ahead. Why aren't you speaking to me? I questioned, puzzled by the silence. I've chosen not to engage with strangers, came the reply. Accepting this, I prepared to leave. Life at my husband's parents' house was challenging. I anticipated some resistance from my mother-in-law, but the cold shoulder from my father-in-law was unexpected. The atmosphere shifted notably when my sister-in-law, who openly disliked me, moved back in. Our once serene household turned tumultuous. Feeling undeterred, I muttered, "Don't assume I'll regret leaving," and swiftly packed my belongings. Just 2 days after my departure, chaos erupted in their home. My husband and I initially met at work. He was a sales representative, frequently visiting my office. As we collaborated more, I found myself drawn to his kindness and charm. While not conventionally attractive, his personality won me over, and it wasn't long before we started dating. During our conversations, he shared that he grew up in a stable family with loving parents and a sister. My background was starkly different. I had lost my parents young and was raised in an orphanage. It was a difficult past to discuss, but he listened empathetically and reassured me of his unwavering support. Soon after, he proposed, eager to advance our relationship into marriage. Upon meeting his parents and revealing my upbringing in an orphanage, they were supportive and dismissed any notion that it would impact our marriage. This acceptance warmed my heart, although my sister-in-law's reaction suggested she was less pleased. At the time, I brushed off her surprise, attributing it to the initial adjustments of our growing relationship. As our wedding approached, my husband and I contemplated living with his parents. Although it was a serious consideration, I chose to maintain my employment, especially since my husband was due for a transfer. This decision, though small, marked the beginning of many choices I would navigate in my new life as part of their family. Despite considering leaving my job to move with my husband, my career was on an upward trajectory, and I had recently been entrusted with more responsibilities. After discussing it, we agreed that he would relocate alone following our wedding. I relished the idea of enjoying our early days as newlyweds, even planning long weekend visits to ensure we had some quality time together. Moving in with my in-laws right after marrying felt overwhelming, but my husband seemed more at ease with the arrangement, likely hoping it would alleviate his mother's concerns. Since I had lost my parents at a young age, the prospect of being part of a family was appealing, and over time, I had grown fond of my in-laws, despite the challenges of balancing work and family life. One day, an unexpected situation arose that tested our otherwise content living situation. It began when my usually bossy and anxious mother-in-law was out shopping, and I was preparing to clean on my day off. My father-in-law, appearing more frazzled than usual, pulled me aside for a private conversation. "What's going on?" I inquired, noticing his discomfort. He hesitated, then shared his dilemma. "I need to take some time off work," he confessed, explaining how workplace stress and health issues were taking a toll on him. He worried about my mother-in-law's reaction. She was generally caring but prone to anxiety and could be overly critical. For instance, when he had previously taken a sick day, she had chastised him for not being more career-focused like his coworkers. My father-in-law had always been slender, but I noticed he had lost even more weight recently. Despite needing a break, he feared my mother-in-law's reaction to any mention of time off, especially since they depended on the extra income from his overtime hours. Reluctantly, he revealed that he had been sneaking out to see a doctor and now faced the necessity of a break from work. He was in a bind. "If I tell her, she might leave me," he confided, a hint of desperation in his voice. The thought pained me. My in-laws had welcomed me with open arms, regardless of my past in an orphanage, and I felt a strong desire to support them. "Okay, I'll send you money every month to cover your expenses," I offered, determined to help him through this rough patch. "I'm sorry you're going through this. Try to get better soon and return to work when you can." "Thank you so much," he replied, visibly relieved but still burdened by the secret he had to keep. Following our conversation, he continued to pretend to go to work, maintaining the facade to avoid upsetting my mother-in-law. This secret added a complex layer to our family dynamics, but I was committed to supporting him during this challenging time. While I quietly transferred money to my father-in-law's bank account for his living expenses, my mother-in-law never bothered to check her bank statements closely, so she remained unaware of the transfers. He maintained the illusion of going to work daily, but instead, he sought solace and recovery in a mental health clinic and long walks in the serene mountains. Gradually, his health and spirits improved, and it seemed he might soon return to work. However, an unexpected turn of events shook our household dynamics. After a significant argument with her husband, my sister-in-law returned to her parents' home. "There's nothing like being back home," she declared with relief, venting about her strained marriage. "I thought I'd lose my mind staying with that foolish husband of mine. I'll be staying here for a while, so you'll need to cook for me too." From our first family gathering, it was clear she harbored resentment towards me. At her wedding, she grimaced throughout and later criticized my appearance to my face, suggesting her brother could have married someone more attractive. She also made hurtful remarks about my upbringing in an orphanage, openly calling it an embarrassment. Given that she had moved out after her marriage, I initially thought her presence wouldn't be a permanent issue in my life. Her sudden return, driven by marital troubles, seemed temporary. However, her stay extended, and her attitude grew increasingly bitter, particularly towards my father-in-law. Despite this, my mother-in-law had always treated me kindly, and I believed she would defend me against any harsh comments from my sister-in-law. Unfortunately, I was mistaken. One day, after returning from work, I sensed a shift in my mother-in-law's demeanor. She seemed distant and cold. Concerned, I approached her. "Is something bothering you?" I asked gently. Her response was chilling. "Did you know you've been talking about me behind my back?" she accused. I was stunned. "I've never spoken ill of you. You've always been kind, and I'm grateful. Why would I say bad things about you?" I responded, confused and hurt. She left the room abruptly, leaving me to face my smirking sister-in-law in the hallway. "Looks like you're not in her good books anymore. Did your true colors finally show? Being from an orphanage, your background does matter, huh? It's best not to gossip about people," she taunted. I defended myself, bewildered by the accusation. "Oh, the neighbors mentioned it when I came back. They said you've been speaking poorly of her all along," my sister-in-law claimed, adding a layer of mystery with her vague reference to unnamed neighbors. "I've never said any of those things." "Stop making things up," I protested, but my words fell on deaf ears. "Oh, how disrespectful, Mom." "She's calling me a liar and being mean to me," my sister-in-law exclaimed, twisting my words as she retreated to my mother-in-law's room. Following this incident, my sister-in-law's behavior worsened. She fabricated complaints, claiming I mistreated her by making her sleep in the hallway and insisting she'd take the last turn for the bath since she was merely a guest. Each time she complained, I found myself explaining and defending my actions and words, trying to clear misunderstandings in a home that had once promised a new family and a fresh start. As time passed, it became evident that my mother-in-law was increasingly influenced by my sister-in-law's manipulative words. The situation grew more complicated when my sister-in-law prolonged her stay, and I couldn't help but wonder if she intended to make her visit permanent. This thought weighed heavily on me each day as I returned home from work, a place that once felt welcoming but now felt cold and silent. "I'm back," I announced softly upon entering the house, a stark contrast to the warm greetings I used to receive. The living room was quiet. "I'll start making dinner," I said, trying to keep the routine normal. To my surprise, as I walked into the dining area, I found my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law already eating sushi together. My sister-in-law smirked. "Oh, looks like someone who isn't family is here. You weren't planning on having sushi, were you?" My mother-in-law continued eating, her eyes glued to the television, ignoring my presence. "If you wanted sushi, you should have told me." "I came straight home from shopping," I replied, trying to hide my hurt. "No one mentioned they wanted that," my sister-in-law retorted, dismissing me completely. Then, turning to our parents, she cheerfully added, "Hey Mom, Dad, I went out with my friends today and brought back some delicious pudding. Let's eat together." They all indulged in the dessert, ignoring me entirely. Exhausted from work and the emotional strain, I retreated to my room, too weary to confront the blatant exclusion. The following day, my sister-in-law, preparing for another outing with friends, asked me to drive her to the station. "I can't. It's a weekday and I have work. Besides, we're not even going in the same direction, and you want to leave around noon," I explained, my patience wearing thin. "Just take the day off. It's fine. Your cute little sis-in-law just wants a ride. She hasn't had a chance to relax since she got married, right? Can't you be a bit nicer to her now?" she pleaded, trying to manipulate the situation. "With all due respect, didn't you go out with friends last night after getting a late call? It seems like you've been going out almost every day since you came back. I have work. Please take the bus or train," I countered, standing my ground as my mother-in-law and sister-in-law whispered to each other. I left for work, determined not to let the situation escalate further. However, the tipping point came that evening. Work had delayed me, and I arrived home late, soaked from the rain, groceries in hand, bracing for yet another cold reception. As expected, they were eating dinner without acknowledging me, continuing the pattern of the previous days. But what awaited me in the courtyard was far worse than any cold shoulder. In the middle of the garden, illuminated by the dim porch light, lay a pile of my belongings. My designer bag that I had bought with my first paycheck, shoes that were a birthday gift from my husband, and even my work computer, all drenched from the rain. My sister-in-law stood there smirking triumphantly. Having the stranger's things in the house grosses me out, so I threw them out. "Flaunting a designer bag like that, how arrogant of you," she sneered. Stunned, I turned to my mother-in-law and father-in-law. "Why didn't you stop her? Have I done something to make you believe her lies about me, bad-mouthing you and bullying her? Aren't you upset with her for what she did?" I pleaded for some sign of support. My mother-in-law avoided my gaze and remained silent, then finally muttered, "I can't talk to strangers. I can't be friendly with someone who's not family." Hurt and bewildered, I asked, "Where's my father-in-law?" He had been the one I supported during his time off, the only one who seemed to appreciate my efforts to blend into this family. As the silence stretched on, the harsh reality of my situation became painfully clear. I had been managing the finances in our household, a task I undertook out of gratitude for being welcomed into the family. But when conflict arose, I found myself longing for some support, especially from my father-in-law, whom I had financially supported during his time off. As the tensions escalated, I hoped he would stand by me. But when the moment came, he merely walked past without a word and retreated to his room. "That's it for me," I murmured to myself, feeling a mix of resignation and resolve. My sister-in-law, seizing the opportunity to twist the knife further, sneered, "Oh, are you upset?" "I'm sorry, not honestly. I never liked you from the start, coming from an institution and all. Just don't regret leaving. Good riddance." I retorted sharply. The decision was clear. It was time to leave. I quickly packed my belongings, aware that even though my father-in-law might worry about losing my financial support, he didn't make any move to stop me or defend me. His silence was the final straw. Driven by a need to escape the toxic environment, I didn't even discuss these issues with my husband before leaving. I suspected that my mother-in-law hadn't informed him of my sister-in-law's return or the ensuing conflicts. If he had known, surely he would have reached out, knowing the strained relations between us. But there had been no word from him on the matter, and a part of me feared that perhaps he too was influenced by his family's narrative. With a heavy heart, I got into my car and drove straight to my husband's new job location far away. All the while, doubts about his loyalty and our future together clouded my mind. Perhaps he sided with his family, I feared, and if so, could divorce be the only solution? Upon arriving at his apartment, he wasn't home yet, likely held up by end-of-month work. As I waited, the lights in the apartment signaled my arrival, and soon my husband walked in, surprised and delighted. "What, you're here? You should have told me you were coming. I would have come back sooner." What a pleasant surprise. His face lit up with a genuine smile, a stark contrast to the coldness I'd faced at his family's home. The mix of relief and humiliation overwhelmed me, and tears started to form. "What's wrong? Did I do something seriously? What's going on?" he asked, his concern palpable. Taking a deep breath, I began to explain everything. Told him about supporting his father during his medical leave, his sister's return and prolonged stay, her lies that turned his mother against me, and the cold treatment that escalated to my belongings being left out in the rain. Through tears and pauses, I laid bare the painful reality of my days with his family. After hearing everything, my husband was apologetic. He regretted being too wrapped up in work to notice the signs and deeply lamented his family's behavior towards me. He assured me that I wouldn't have to return to that house or interact with them if I chose not to. His response provided a sliver of hope that perhaps, with his support, we could navigate through this turmoil together. Despite the possibility of forgiveness someday, my husband was resolute about severing ties with his parents and sister. He also firmly declared that he would cease all financial support to his father. That night, I felt an immense burden lift from my shoulders. The stress I had been carrying dissolved, and I slept soundly beside him for the first time in ages. After leaving my in-laws' house, I never returned. Commuting to my husband's out-of-state location wasn't feasible, but fortunately, I had already arranged with my company to work remotely. My job didn't require constant office presence, and many of my colleagues were also working from home. Although I still needed to visit the office a few times each month, some of my colleagues lived even farther away, so remote work was a well-established practice. Living under the same roof as my in-laws and enduring my sister-in-law's antagonism had kept me from truly enjoying married life. Now, as we settled into our new routine, it felt like we were finally starting our lives as newlyweds. I was setting up my remote workstation when unexpectedly my sister-in-law reached out to me. It turned out that the day after I left was my father-in-law's payday, a day my mother-in-law typically managed by transferring a portion of his paycheck to their household account. This time, however, she was unable to do so, and only then discovered that I had been supporting them financially during his time off. "Hey, why didn't you tell me you were covering the living expenses?" she demanded over the phone. He asked me not to. "He didn't want you to know, so I respected his wishes," I responded calmly. "We're running out of money for living expenses, and there's no one here to cook or do laundry. The place is a mess. As his wife, you need to come back and take care of these things, and send money quickly," she continued, her voice desperate. "How heartless," she exclaimed. "I've already told you I have no intention of going back to that house or being treated like your maid. Why should I help people who despise me, ruin my things, and treat me this way?" I replied, "Aren't you his wife?" "Without your help, we can't pay the bills or even shop," she continued, her voice desperate. "That's exactly why I'm saying it. I'm an outsider, so it's none of my business, right?" I reflected on her own words. I hung up the phone, ignoring her further complaints. Despite her and my mother-in-law's attempts to reach me with calls and messages, I stood firm in my decision. No longer would I allow myself to be drawn into their chaos or be manipulated by guilt. It was a liberating moment, affirming my resolve to start anew with my husband, free from the toxic ties that had once bound us. Despite the persistent calls from my in-laws, I chose to ignore them completely. However, when my husband returned from work and finally answered the phone, he addressed them with unwavering firmness. "I will never forgive how you treated her. I'm not sending her back to you, and I'm not coming back either. I don't see you as my family anymore. Leave my wife alone, or you'll regret it," he declared. Considering how much my sister-in-law idolized her brother and my mother-in-law's dependency on him, this declaration must have come as a shock to them. A few days later, my father-in-law called, his voice laden with desperation. He explained how difficult life had become living with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and begged me to resume the financial help. Although they had welcomed me into the family despite my orphanage background, their lack of support when I needed it most made me realize I owed them nothing. "I will never assist you again," I told him firmly and ended the call. Subsequently, in an act of sheer desperation, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law shamelessly showed up at my workplace, knowing their potential for creating disturbances. I had already briefed my company about the situation, and security was alerted immediately. They caused a scene, demanding that the company force me to send money back home. When my husband found out, he was incensed and advised me to report them to the police. My colleagues were incredibly supportive, encouraging me to focus on my work and my life with my husband, far removed from the toxic environment of my in-laws. The stress took its toll on my father-in-law, whose health declined significantly due to the pressure exerted by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Eventually, he had no choice but to quit his job. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law attempted to return to her husband's family, but he refused to take her back. The town quickly caught wind of her dramatic antics at my workplace, exacerbating her already troubled marriage, which promptly led to their decision to divorce. Without any support, my in-laws and sister-in-law moved to a modest apartment and started working part-time jobs to make ends meet. As for my husband and me, we were finally enjoying peaceful, fulfilling days together. Our home became a sanctuary of love and support, far from the strife we had endured. Recently, we received joyous news. We are expecting a child. The anticipation of meeting our baby fills us with happiness. We are eagerly awaiting this new addition to our family, cherishing every moment of this special time together.